Wednesday morning, everybody. Welcome on into today's episode of FreightWaves Now. I'm Kaylee Nix here with Anthony Smith, ready to get your Wednesday started.
And that's right. On today's episode, we'll have another lucky person in our hot seat coming up later on in the next hour. Also, we'll have advice on what you should focus on in a volatile market. But first, our top story takes us not too far from here to Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where a new locomotive engine is being built with a new fuel, and it's not nuclear. We have Joanna Marsh here to join us now. Joanna, thanks so much for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
So let's talk a little bit about what's going on with this. We know that there are alternative powered locomotives in the works. We've heard a lot about battery electric locomotives from places like Wabtec, but what's going on with the possibility of hydrogen?
Yeah. So hydrogen-powered locomotives is definitely a thing that the freight rail industry is looking into. It's not new. Like Canadian Pacific, for instance, has, I believe, some programs involving hydrogen-powered locomotives and sort of using hydrogen to power the fuel cells to power the locomotives. And there are other class ones looking at hydrogen locomotives as well. So that's not new. What is new is this sort of ongoing partnership that started a few months ago between Wabtec and the two national laboratories, one at Oak Ridge, as you mentioned, in Tennessee, and the other one, Argonne National Laboratory. And what the project entails, it's 4 years, and it's looking to see if they can develop sort of a hybrid locomotive. Like you have the, you have electric vehicles and you have electric vehicles that run on gasoline and batteries. And so it's kind of like the same idea. It's like, can you have a locomotive that can run on both hydrogen and diesel? So that's kind of what they're looking at right now, and just trying to see what content, can they split between diesel and hydrogen? Like, can it be, 10% diesel? And throughout the process, they'll try to, up the hydrogen content more to see, what can run safely, what can, operate, what's the optimum performance, that kind of thing. And so, that's what they'll all be doing throughout this project.
So when it comes to drafting a hybrid of something, whether that's a combustion engine, whether that's a locomotive, a lot of the problem has to come with the fact that for a hybrid, you have to have two specific sets of equipment, right? Like if you're going to go battery electric, or hybrid battery, not only do you have to have the batteries, which are heavy and cumbersome, but then you also have to have the ICE products. Same thing as if you go half hydrogen, half diesel, right? You have to have components that work for both. Any indication on what that looks like from a performance standard? Do we see okay performance for a locomotive that operates off of both types of equipment? Are there limitations because of the weight or the size of the equipment or anything like that?
Yeah. I think what they're looking at is, they might have to transport the hydrogen as well in the train. So it would be sort of like, as I forget I'm blanking on the word right now, but the tender, so the tender car. So you would have, the hydrogen transported with the train, and you could put it, but the hydrogen could go into the locomotive when you need it. Let's see, but the other interesting thing about this project is that that it builds upon sort of existing research, not just within the railroad industry, but actually with the automotive industry. Oak Ridge has conducted research on light vehicle, and the Department of Transportation is looking at focusing on heavy vehicles. And so that's how freight locomotives got involved. Let me see what else. And Wabtec as well also has a relationship with General Motors in terms of, looking at this kind of technology. All parties are building upon existing from other transportation modes.
And Joanna, of course, you mentioned the 4-year timeline here, but do you have any idea of when this is kind of finished up after the end of that, what the lifespan of the engine is looking like? I know a typical locomotive engine lifespan is looking around 30 years. Does this potentially extend that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not 100% sure. I know that after the project is done, Wabtec will sort of have the rights to the copyright, so to speak, and so they can make a product from that. But of course, the national laboratories will have their information as well that they can use to bolster future research. I think the idea is for having this project in the first place is that it's kind of hard to have locomotives or trains can have multiple locomotives on a train, like 3 locomotives, and it's hard to have all of them to have the battery electric locomotives. On one hand, it's nice, but then you just need a lot of batteries for in order to power the train. To completely run on battery electric locomotives. And so, is there a way to look at the hybrid diesel options? And so that's kind of what they were looking at. And also, I'm sorry, I remember what I was going to say now, which was. They're also trying to find a retrofit option, and so locomotives are really expensive, and so is there a way to retrofit existing locomotives, and can that sort of maintain the lifespan of the locomotive or extend it? I'm not sure, but that is something that they're looking at as well. So.
It's interesting to watch, definitely, that retrofit option. Joanna, let's change gears really quickly here before we let you go for the day. We had that issue over the weekend where we saw the Norfolk Southern train derail in eastern Ohio. Can you give us a little bit of an update about what's going on with that situation there and how it's affecting service?
Yeah. So around 8:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I was just listening to the NTSB press conference just now. That's why I have the time stuck in my head. A Norfolk Southern eastbound train derailed near East Palestine, Ohio, which is actually near the border between Ohio and Pennsylvania. It's pretty close to Pennsylvania, actually, and so there has been a local evacuation, which is still in place. The NTSB and is kind of trying to gather evidence, and NS, Norfolk Southern, and the others are trying to clear away the track. And Norfolk Southern and state and federal EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, is continuing to monitor air and water quality to see what's going on. But so that clearing of the incident is still ongoing, and that's affecting obviously Norfolk Southern's operations. So they have put out service updates saying, to expect delays between Cleveland and the Port of New Jersey and New York, and also between ports in the Midwest like Chicago and St. Louis and Kansas City, and the Northeast. And so the trains are able to run in alternate routes, but because the routes aren't direct, things are going to take longer. And so they're not entirely sure yet when the route will be fully restored. But that's what's going on right now.
Definitely an interesting situation, and Joanna will of course follow up with you as this continues to develop.
All right, thanks.
All right, and of course you can catch Joanna's content up on FreightWaves.com. Catch her tomorrow for People Speaking Real with Mike Bowden-Distel as well here on FreightWaves TV. Right now we're going to toss things over to the wall. We've got our first carrier update with Tony Mulvey and Donnie Gilbert.
Welcome into this carrier update. I'm Tony Mulvey, joined by Donnie Gilbert. Donnie, going to start this morning looking at diesel fuel prices. Obviously still seeing some positive signs, moving lower, just not really at the rate we would like to see it move lower.
Yes, but there are a lot more positive things. That's why I pulled this chart up. The dark blue is the retail diesel fuel prices, and the green is our rack prices, quote, the wholesale prices. Yep. Now, the reason I wanted to draw this back is we're currently at 465. Now, we peaked out in December, and we saw a nice drop in December all the way through January. And this little point here in January is slightly below where we are now.
Yep.
Besides that point, the last time we were this low, March of 2022. So we are almost to the lowest point in almost a year.
Yep.
So hopefully we'll continue to go down. Other positive signs, our rack price here in green, it continues to go down. We've seen a day where it kind of stalled out. That happens. There's many days where it stalls out. And hopefully it will continue to go on down. And if it does, then we'll continue going down. Now there's plenty of room. I don't have it up here today, but I believe the split is $1.62 today.
Yep.
So there's plenty of room in there for these prices to continue to go down. That would need to close up about 40 cents before we start seeing it push the actual retail price of diesel back up. So here for at least the next few days, possibly a few weeks, we might see diesel fuel prices continue to go down. And the other semi-positive side, let's say, is demand for diesel isn't as high right now in February as it would be in maybe May, June, July, months like that, December. So hopefully with a lower demand, it can help these prices continue to fall.
Yeah, I mean, if you look there in January, right, we saw that uptick in the rack price, and really where you're talking about, I mean, it's a very small increase, right? So we could see the rack price move up without it necessarily affecting the retail market, which is okay. Like you said, we had that 40-cent kind of buffer zone right now. But with that, I mean, you can see how quickly it can change too. I mean, look in early October, look in August, look back May and early June, you saw 40-cent swings happen within a week.
Yeah,
so it's definitely to pay attention to.
Yeah, it comes down at a couple cents and it jumps up 3 or 4 cents. That's a 5-cent buffer. A couple of days of that 40 cents is gone. You are correct, Tony. Let's go to the next chart here real quick. So I brought up our DTS, same. This is the same exact thing, except it's on a U.S. map broken down by the markets. And I love looking at this because these whiter areas, this is the area that's the cheapest in diesel fuel. As you move out from this to the east or to the west, you see it start to put some blue color in.
Yep.
Rates are going up some. As you get into the northeast here, we're well over $5 a gallon. And of course, I brought up San Francisco over here, put my cursor over it. An average diesel truck stop price of $5.74. And we've come down a lot. It was well over $6. So that's kind of scary out there. That's why it's so hard to work right now out in California. You need good rates, and rates aren't there. Go to the next chart here just real quick. Cheapest we've seen, Oklahoma City. You can bring DTS up on a chart here. Oklahoma City, the average price is $3.89. And you can bring other markets up on a chart if you wish, Tony.
Awesome stuff. Thank you as always, Donnie. We'll be sure to check in with you again a little later. Right now, we'll hand it back over to Kaylee Nix.
Thanks, guys. Time for our first check of top stories this morning from FreightWaves.com. Executives at Warner Enterprises have echoed the sentiment of expecting a better freight market by the end of the year as the company beat analyst estimates with its fourth quarter results. Chairman, President, and CEO Derek Leathers said that retail inventories remain a tough problem to work through as people right-size their inventories. Warner reported adjusted earnings per share of 99 cents after the market closed yesterday, which was 7 cents over estimates but 14 cents lower year over year. Total revenue came in at $635 million, 13% higher year over year. RXO reported its first quarterly results since being spun off of parent company XPO last November. It came in with diluted earnings per share of 28 cents on a revenue of $1.1 billion. This is down $0.2 million, that is, from the same period in 2021 when RXO was still part of the XPO umbrella. However, the earnings per share number beat analyst estimates by 5 cents per share. Margins came in at 19.6%, up 250 basis points year over year. That result led to a 3.3% rise in share price and after-hours trading yesterday. And engine maker Cummins is remaining on track with truck manufacturer projections for solid new truck demand across North America, at least for the first half of 2023. CEO and President Jennifer Brumleve said that healthy freight activity and strong backlogs give the company confidence in the market. Sales in Q4 were up 25% across North America. The OEM projects North American heavy-duty truck production to fall between 260 and 280,000 units this year. It also projects a flat to 10% increase in medium-duty production, moving moving numbers from 125 to 140,000 units. And you can find details of these stories and more by heading on over to FreightWaves.com or logging into our FreightWaves app. Give us a like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube, and of course, you follow on social media. And of course, head on over to tv.freightwaves.com for anything you might have missed during this week. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back, so don't go away. The 2023 Freight Tech 25 list is filled with meaningful innovators from across the industry who are helping shape what the future of supply chain will look like. Check out the full list of these companies and all the latest Freight Tech news at FreightWaves.com.
From the truckload quoting page within TieTMS, you can create a new shipment to instantly display your historical lane average alongside all of the market-leading rating intelligence tools. In just a few clicks, you can adjust the quote, add your margin, select your quote response template, and email an official quote right off to the customer from the same page. Request a demo today at tie-software.com to find out how TieTMS can optimize your quoting process.
Welcome to Drilling Deep. I'm your host, John Kingston. Drilling Deep is the place where we talk about oil and we talk about diesel, and you have to drill to get oil and you have to get oil to make diesel, so that's why we call it Drilling Deep. Drilling Deep drops every Friday on FreightWaves TV and all available podcast platforms.
Welcome back to FreightWaves Now on this Wednesday morning. It's time for our first check of the weather. We're watching another pretty substantial storm system set up across the southern plains, going to bring a pretty wide variety of weather. First thing that we're going to have to worry about, though, is some strong winds on the front side, the leading edge of the cold front. So let's check it out in Sonar Critical Events. Right now, we've got a couple of watches and warnings up on the screen, and we'll talk about what's going on with our severe weather threat later on in the show. But ahead on the front side of it, we've got wind advisories in place across pretty much everywhere from Chicago down towards Kentucky into Tennessee and even into northern Alabama and Mississippi. Wind advisories from Alabama up through central Kentucky. Once you get into Indiana and into the Chicago area, we've got high wind watches in place today. Sustained winds going to be settling between about 25 to 30 miles an hour. Some places could be seeing wind gusts between 50 and 60, so dangerous driving conditions out there. Most of these winds going to be northwest to the southeast, so anyone that's driving on interstates running in that east to west orientation going to have to worry. Same thing as if you're driving north to south, honestly, because you get that kind of crosswind across no matter which way that you're driving, to have to worry about those wind issues. Alongside with that, behind the cold front, we'll have some rain developing, and with that, we could see some embedded strong gusty winds within the line of storms as it moves through the areas today. That line of storms is going to take kind of a slow approach down from the northwest down to the southeast. And we'll touch a little bit on that later on in the show, because with that is a severe weather threat for the deep south that does include the central Mississippi into northern Louisiana area. We'll talk about that coming up a little bit later on in the show. Right now, we're going to toss things over to Isaiah Buchanan. He's got our first check of the social roundabout this morning.
Welcome into Social Roundabout, everyone. I'm Isaiah Buchanan, and history was made last night in the NBA. LeBron James, you probably heard of him before, just a kid from Akron, playing 20 years in the league, has now passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the most points in NBA history. He did it with this fadeaway jump shot right here. You can see he runs down the court, hands up. Everybody in the crowd's going crazy. They know that he's done it. He now stands alone as the scoring king of the NBA. LeBron was getting love from a lot of former and current NBA players for his accomplishment. I mean, this guy has been playing at such a high level for the past 20 years. I believe he's third all time in scoring average in NBA history. And he has, I mean, this record that he broke from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar stood for 39 years. Now, it's probably going to take a lot longer for somebody to come by and pass LeBron's record, because LeBron's still going to be playing for another probably 2, 3, 4 years until his kids get to the NBA. I mean, that's unheard of. But yeah, a couple of former players were giving LeBron some love. This tweet right here from Magic Johnson, a former Laker himself. Congratulations to LeBron for breaking the NBA all-time scoring record with 38,388 career points. And then there's another tweet from Steph Curry, LeBron's rival, who said, "Congrats, King James." Legendary stuff right there. Hashtag 38,388. So congratulations to LeBron James, the NBA's new scoring king. Like I said, just a kid from Akron, Ohio, is what he's always called himself. Really cool to see him break that record last night, and really want to see what that final number is that he gets to. Does he break 40,000 points? Does he break 45,000 points? You know, he has a total of 46,000 points over his career, including the playoffs, which is also #1 in the NBA. So he's the king. He is truly the king. That's all I have for this edition of the Social Roundabout. Right now, I'm going to toss things back over to Kaylee and Anthony.
All right, Isaiah, thank you for that. It might make LeBron the top scorer, but do you think it makes him the GOAT, the greatest of all time in the NBA?
I don't know. That's hard with Michael Jordan. I mean, that's going to be an ongoing debate, and I don't think it's ever going to be solved.
I don't know. All right, Isaiah, thank you for that. We'll talk to you a little bit later. Right now, we're going to welcome in our next live guest. We've got Nick Oliver joining us from Metafora to talk a little bit about what to do with your life during a volatile time in the market. Nick, thank you for being here.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, Nick, and it's great to have you on. Of course, always great to have Metafora involved, and we're excited to talk about this topic because it's so applicable right now. It's definitely a volatile market when you're looking at what's going on with easing conditions, but some have expectations of improving conditions going into the middle part of the year. What are going to be some of the first headline items that you really need to start looking at when you're looking at navigating in a volatile market?
Yeah, definitely. I would look at 3 core focus areas. So first, customer interactions and experience. Next, internal with your employees. And then also strategic goal setting and actions taken by leadership within your company.
So all of those have a pretty broad focus, right? Number 1 priority, I think, is kind of regrounding in your company strategy and figuring out, okay, where do we sit, what's our foundation, and where do we want to go? When you're looking at that, a lot of companies maybe say, okay, we want to find growth, we want to be growth-minded, but that can mean a bunch of different things, right? Do you want to grow revenues? Do you want to grow headcount? Do you want to grow customers? Do you want to grow and just maybe your geographic footprint? What types of things do you recommend from a consulting side to maybe try and narrow down that focus for people who want to grow, but they don't necessarily know which way to do that?
Yeah, definitely. I would look to have a balanced and diversified approach. So most cycles have tended to vary in duration and intensity. So you just want to ensure that you're planning for the worst case scenario and then proactively responding to customers and the market to ensure the success and viability of your business. You want to make sure that you're not making decisions in a silo or for short-term gain that may affect your business in more of a long-term sense. And then also looking at what happened in past cycles and learning from what you did, and then the mistakes that were previously made. You need to take some of the best practices from what was previously happened in other cycles and then incorporate them into your business. And then also externally with customers. We suggest reaching out to your network to possibly gain additional insights, and then also look to bring on additional help if needed, if there's a particular issue that your company is struggling with.
And Nick, sticking onto that last point, bringing on additional help, can you talk to the different aspects of recruiting during volatile markets? I can only imagine you need to have the right roles and really be sure and more focused on who you need to hire and when.
Yeah, definitely. So I think you can look at this in two different buckets. So, first, you want to make sure that you have the roles in place to service your customers. But then you also want to make sure that you have the proper roles internally to service, those operational needs. So making sure internally that you have training set up, leadership in the correct places, but then also externally, or internally, I should say, with, to be able to externally service your customers. We've looked into, exploring nearshoring partners where possible to limit costs and then streamline operations. But at the end of the day, you just want to make sure that all of your customers' needs are being met and that you have a plan for any changes in the market.
So when that market maybe does change, and we're talking volatility, of course, so we're not necessarily anticipating big trends, and it makes that sudden shift. A lot of companies maybe can find that they were on one trajectory, and then all of a sudden that strategy isn't working anymore. When you're trying to make a quick pivot, do you have any advice on what that looks like for maybe a company leader who has to walk back and say, okay, we put forth this strategy, but now we've got to take it back a step and maybe recalculate our direction?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, where you want to make sure that you're not making decisions in a silo or too hastily, or even in times such as this, not making sure that you're making larger moves that could impact the business moving forward and that you can't pivot from. There's definitely planning that goes into place in relation to that to ensure that if a decision is going down the wrong path, that you can quickly refocus, and then switch to a different area, to potentially solve that.
And Nick, can you talk on really what those shifting market conditions, things like that, how important relationships are during this entire process? Because I can only imagine that communication and that relationship building gets a little bit more critical during these times.
Yeah, definitely. At the end of the day, customer satisfaction and experience is probably the most important thing here to note. The customer is truly at the center of your business, and ensuring that, your internal areas are aligned with the customer needs and expectations will definitely help throughout volatile times. Ensuring that you're meeting the various needs of your customers, and then looking at your carrier relationships, for example, continuing to build those relationships so that when the market does change again, you have those foundational elements in place. And then one note on top of this is empathy for customers as well. Using that as a differentiator in the market. Understand that your customers might be going through hard times, and your company could be as well. But customers ultimately do respond positively to partners that they feel understand them. Something that we talk about here at Metafora is really going the extra mile. So want to make sure that your company is showing value and acting not just in a business sense, but also as a partner where possible.
Nick, has there been anything during the last kind of 2 years working with your clients at Metafora that has really surprised you, where they've come out and said, okay, this is our priority, and you maybe look at them and you're like, why is that your priority? I'm not quite sure, but sure, I'll help you out with it, but maybe that's not where we need to be focused?
Yeah, definitely. So if you're looking at customer relationships versus carrier relationships, and having maybe a company focus on one particular set of relationships, I think you need to look at it holistically. So everybody that's having interactions with your business in some sense, really making sure that you're servicing them properly, so that at the end of the day, you're continuing to build those relationships and you're not breaking any bridges in any way.
And one of the other aspects I can only imagine is very crucial is definitely having a diversified approach, really not being too heavily leveraged into one particular area. Can you talk to how important that might be during a slowing or volatile market?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's really just not putting all of your eggs in one basket. You want to make sure that, you're diversified in a way where if something does go awry during, volatile or difficult times, that one business decision doesn't set you on a path that will potentially disrupt the viability of your business. So it all goes back to strategic planning, making sure that you have a correct path forward for the business. And that, as I mentioned earlier, all the eggs aren't in one basket. So if something does go wrong, you can't quickly pivot and make business decisions to kind of address any of those concerns.
So looking at where we're at right now in this current volatile market, we're seeing a lot of truckload carriers come out and say, okay, you know what, we're expecting maybe some normalization and some return back to decent performance by the middle of the year. But at the same time, you're still seeing brokerage have to deal with layoffs or a cut back or a scale back. Where do you guys sit in your opinion of where you think the market is going to head? Do you think that we're in for a couple more maybe rocky months, maybe a rocky end to Q1 and start to Q2, and then a bit of smoothing out by the end of the year?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think that there's a couple volatile months ahead of us right now. That's definitely what we're seeing with talking to some of our customers and then being at various conferences lately and just getting the pulse of the market. But we do anticipate, better times ahead. And there is definitely optimism within the market that things will improve as we look to get towards the end of the year.
Definitely one of the things that you need to do is consult with experts. And Nick, if people want to find out more about Metafora, yourself, get more in touch with what they can do right now, how can they do that?
Yeah, definitely. I would suggest checking out our website. And then if you have any questions, we can definitely send out some contact info, but really appreciate you calling that out.
All right, Nick, thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, we will talk to you guys soon.
Perfect. Thanks for having me on.
So much to take in consideration during shifting market trends.
Absolutely. Where do you want to be and where do you want to go?
That's right. And I'm sure we'll cover all that in the upcoming virtual event. But first, we're going to take a break and we have more FreightWaves Now coming up soon.
From the truckload quoting page within TieTMS, you can create a new shipment to instantly display your historical lane average alongside all of the market-leading rating intelligence tools. In just a few clicks, you can adjust the quote, add your margin, select your quote response template, and email an official quote right off to the customer from the same page. Request a demo today at tie-software.com to find out how TieTMS can optimize your quoting process.
Like F3, we know what they want is a chance to show off their products, their swag, and make new partnerships that will last until our next FreightWaves event.
But the problem is there are so many industry events, it can be so hard to find the right one to invest your time and energy in. We at FreightWaves take your investment seriously.
Which is why we brought together thousands of industry professionals in one city over 3 days to show
Hey everybody, this is Thomas Watson, enterprise trucking carrier expert here at FreightWaves, telling you about my show, Loaded and Rolling. Now, it involves trucking topics for large carriers and even small ones that wish to be large. Anything that impacts trucking, you can get it there. You can catch us every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern on tv.freightwaves.com. We do it live.
Welcome back to FreightWaves Now. Donnie, going to start this carrier update. It's a day later than normal, but we're going to talk about the dry van market today. Really, seeing rejections continue to move lower. Volume levels did tick back up overnight, but I mean, they're still down from the beginning of the month.
Sure, down just a little bit from the beginning of the month. And like I say, we all know that probably two of the toughest months can be January and February.
Yep.
Along with August and September, probably the other two. But January and February, it's really tough. You're out there begging for freight. And I'll tell you, a lot of times during January and February, as a broker, if I could make $50 on a load, I was tickled.
Yep.
And so, but freight's gonna be tough right now. And what's really making it tough on those margins is this 3.33% tender rejection rate.
Yeah.
One of the lowest I've seen in quite a while. I know it went a little bit lower back when we shut down in March before, as COVID was getting ramped up.
Yep.
We shut the economy down. We dropped below 3.33. But now we're in our open market, and it might be 4 or 5 more days, maybe a week and a half, and we might drop below 3%. That will be very interesting to see. But volumes starting down a little bit, but we're not in trouble yet with volumes.
Yeah.
There's volumes available. It's just that it's all going on the contract side, which is really hurting the spot market, which is why, Tony, we've said it 1,000 times, reduce your exposure as a carrier to the spot market.
Yep.
You're not going to be able to make it zero, but try to get as low as possible. And there's a couple of different things pushing these rejection rates down. Let's go to the next chart here. And this one chart kind of sums up both of them. These are contracted rates, which does not include fuel. And I brought up our NTI minus fuel as well so we can compare them without the fuel being in there. Right now, even if you took a spot rate and you added the fuel in, it's going to be a little bit cheaper than a contracted rate without fuel.
Yeah.
So that's how far apart they are. So they're getting away from the spot market because contracted is paying a lot better, $2.55 on average, plus almost 70 cents for fuel, or right around that 70-cent mark. So this is going to force everybody to go back to the spot market. And as we talked about on the our very first session, the price of diesel fuel being so high, that is pushing people back to the contracted rates instead of running it on the spot market because they need that fuel surcharge. That is the difference between right here.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things what you look at is when you're not seeing shippers really move freight into the spot market to try to take advantage of this difference, right? They're willing to take that guaranteed capacity at obviously paying a little more, but they don't want to get caught in a situation where, like what we saw in the past 2 years, where the capacity it's not there, and if there's an influx in demand, they're still going to be able to have things covered.
You are right. And what if you move it to the spot market, you take away from, like you said, guaranteed capacity,
Yep.
and you might end up pushing your carriers out of business.
Yep.
And then we're going to go right back into the boom as everybody leaves capacity, and they're going to be in trouble again.
Yep, absolutely, Donnie. Thank you so much for this update. We'll be sure to check in with you again a little later. Right now, we'll hand it back over to Kaylee and Anthony.
Thank you for that carrier update. We are here with our community's writer point of sale, Grace Sharkey, who of course does very many things for us here at FreightWaves, for your Wednesday communities update. Grace, we are so excited to have you on to talk point of sale, of course, our retail-focused newsletter and show as part of our community's brand. And you've had some pretty exciting content the last few weeks.
Yeah, live at Manifest last week, I got to do a one-on-one conversation with GXO's Chief Investment Officer, Mark Manduca, which was really great. You know what's fun about going to these events is that you get to meet the people, right, that you talk to on a daily basis, not face-to-face. So that was fun to meet him in person. And today's episode is actually going to be another interview from Manifest with Krinar from Tive, and a look at a lot of the technologies we saw at the event as well.
And that's, I think, a great point, Grace. And I'm a little bit jealous about all the fun I saw happening at Manifest. I'm going to have to try to get out there again, or get out there next year. But we're looking at some of those conversations. It sounds like tech was definitely top of mind. As you see this as really being a big trend going into the upcoming year, that freight tech is really going to be here to stay and really going to be one of those areas that we see more investment going into.
Yeah, I would say the biggest and most fun aspect of the show was seeing a lot of the robotics and the systems behind the warehousing automation that we've been talking about on the show over the past year or so. It's great to kind of see these automation, these robots in action, even down to the simple like picking and packing type of structures. For instance, Locust Robotics was really interesting to me. They had this big patch on the floor that their robots were intermingling with even humans walking through the space. And at some point, I was even trying to kind of dodge in front of them and kind of see if they could hit someone, right? And what are the dangers of this type of technology in a warehouse and working hand in hand with people. And even last minute dodges in front, they stopped. They could see everything around them, and it was really funny watching them kind of like maneuver around conversations and things of that nature. So I think that was really fun to see. I think a lot of times we talk about like, are people even using, or what to extent are people using robotics in warehousing? And there was a handful of use cases at the event, and happy to, like, again, see them in action and see them mingle with different people, and not just kind of the videos that we tend to see as writers here at FreightWaves too.
I think it's super interesting when you talk about those actual use cases for robots, right? Because companies like Logos have them being used in real warehouse applications right now. And we've got companies that are running these warehouse operations, or retailers who are saying, yeah, our pick and pack process is so much quicker now because we don't have to have that human element involved. Any type of indication on how people are accepting these technologies? I know I can assume that for folks who are coming to the conference and seeing robotics for the first time, they're probably like this shock and awe factor. But now are we actually starting to see them really truly understand the value of robotics because they're able to see it in person?
Yeah, I think honestly, as like an outsider too, it was really cool. Like if I had to work within this like robotics environment, it's very like futuristic, very, very fun to like be around. It's especially the job that they're taking over is like a piece of the job. These warehouses are huge, right? Huge like airline hangars that are out there. Amazon in particular, right? It's got very long warehouses. You don't want to have to walk up and down unless those spaces, and a lot of times that's the issues that you hear from warehouse workers too. So to be able to like work hand in hand with these robots, I mean, it kind of gives you that like R2D2 vibe where it's like, okay, cool, I've got like this pal with me that's helping me along the ride. And I actually have a number of friends that work in management for a number of these Amazon warehouses in particular, and they do make the job more fun, and they're able to now gamify the job a lot more without having to stress the employee out or push them to a limit that a lot of these like unions are stressed about. So I think it's fun. I had a lot of fun around them. I can't imagine not going in, checking in, and having a robot by my side and not enjoying it to some level. But, you know, I am a freight nerd, so that is a little biased, if we're going to be honest.
And that's great to hear your feedback on some of the anecdotal stories from your friends and their experience with some of those warehouse and robotics, because I think a big fear for a lot of folks is that, okay, more tech, more robotics, going to be kind of threatening my job, but it definitely sounds like this is something that's going to be enhancing and helping people around.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was probably the main topic, in my opinion, out of F3 is that when we talk about sustainability, we are talking about the environment, but we're actually kind of talking more about finding the employees to keep up with the demands that we need from our supply chain. So I hope to God that there's not anyone out there who thinks that their job is for long-term threatened. We're still going to need people in these warehouses. We're still seeing vacancy rates being at all-time levels. And I think that, if anything, these robotics are going to help make the job more enjoyable, so that clearly the job is more acceptable by people as well.
So Grace, let's move into a little conversation about today's show, Point of Sale. We've got it this afternoon. What are we talking about with Krenar from Tive?
Yeah, so again, it's cool because I've talked to Krenar so many times, and if anyone knows the Tive origin story, it actually comes from his father-in-law. So his father-in-law has a trucking company, and he heard about a lot of these issues, right, that he was having tracking loads and, of course, giving that feedback to shippers. Well, I actually meet his wife as well, so it's kind of an interesting conversation to hear about the family aspect of this business, too. But it was really great to talk with him one-on-one, see him on a panel speaking about visibility and where it's going. And in particular, you know, we have a lot of I'd say drivers, right? Visibility technology right now is kind of tracking them. What's really cool about Tive is that they're bringing visibility to the actual freight, which is most important at the end of the day. Right now, the best we can do is tracking the driver, and I think that helps with capacity, right, in the long run. But I think a lot of times when shippers ask, hey, I want visibility of my freight, they're not always just talking about the capacity. They're talking about the actual cold chain logistics, right? And what is the temperature at various stages of transit? I want to know where that freight is right now and at this point. And the way that drivers are, and the way that we're even maneuvering around like dropping hooks and making better plays with our available drivers, it's going to be becoming more and more important to almost track the trailer, if not just the freight in general. So they have Tive Tag, which is really cool. You'll get to see that, and it's quite literally a piece of paper. It's a sticker, which I just think is amazing. And we actually get to talk about a couple of stories of missing freight that they're able to quickly help find and recover because of the technology that Tive has provided.
It's definitely intriguing, and I'm excited to see what kind of visibility really kind of continues to push forward throughout the upcoming years. And I think definitely Tive is leading on that front in that area. Grace, if people want to catch this upcoming episode, what time will it be airing?
We have a new time, actually. So for those of you used to 2:30, we're now on at 2 on Wednesday. So you can check that out today. But of course, it is available on demand at FreightWaves TV, or you can check it out wherever you listen to podcasts too. So make sure you subscribe, like all that jazz, so that you can get updated when new episodes come up as well.
Awesome, Grace. Well, thank you for that. We will talk to you later on today. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thanks, guys.
Looking forward to that episode for sure. Sounds intriguing.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more FreightWaves Now in just a few minutes.
Welcome back to another edition of Check Call. Check Call. Check Call. Check Call. Let's go. Nobody works for free, so why should we be expecting our drivers to? Okay, let's just get it together now. What are some of those proactive steps that you can start taking now? For myself, I would like the Earth to still be here for a little bit longer, but is a hot dog a sandwich?
Oh, okay. Is pizza an open-faced sandwich? It's bread.
I have been ready for this question. I've seen the show.
We're all in this together.
Thanks for making me hungry. Now I want a hot dog.
You're welcome. Catch episodes of Check Call Tuesdays at 12:30 on FreightWaves TV. Keep up with all things Check Call on freightwaves.com/checkcall. See you on the internet.
From the truckload quoting page within TIE-TMS, you can create a new shipment to instantly display your historical lane average alongside all of the market-leading rating intelligence tools. In just a few clicks, you can adjust the quote, add your margin, select your quote response template, and email an official quote right off to the customer from the same page. Request a demo today at tie-software.com to find out how TIE-TMS can optimize your quoting process.
Welcome back to FreightWaves Now. It's time for our second check of the weather this morning. We're watching a pretty strong storm system set up again across parts of the southern plains, bringing some heavy rainfall and the possibility for some severe weather across parts of the deep south today. So let's check it out in Sonar Critical Events. This is going to be another storm where we've got kind of a razor-sharp line between the warm and the cold sectors, but most of the cold precipitation that looks like it's falling as snow or a mix is actually just falling as rain in those lower levels. So right now we've got heavier rain falling across central Oklahoma through the I-35 corridor into North Texas. From Dallas-Fort Worth, we've got some stronger storms marching up pretty much to the due north right now. Embedded in that is some heavy rainfall as well as some rumbles of thunder. And out to the front side of that is where we're going to be watching for the severe weather threat today. So specifically targeted around Jackson, Mississippi, but that does include the north or southeast Arkansas area, most of western Mississippi, the Memphis area, as well as almost all of Louisiana, including the New Orleans metro. We've got a pretty substantial chance of severe weather today. Right now, the cold front leading, moving up to the north-northeast, and in front of that, that's going to allow for a lot of moisture influx coming off of the Gulf. So we've got the moisture, we've got the warmth. It's been pretty warm out there the past few days with temperatures to the upper 60s and some 70s, and now we'll have that lift from the cold front sweeping on through. So because of that, we've got a chance for isolated strong to severe thunderstorms. With that comes hail, heavy rainfall, strong winds, and of course the possibility for some tornadoes. So because of that, we do have an enhanced risk in place for today. This does include I-20 moving through Jackson, Mississippi, as well as the I-55 corridor moving north to south. So folks through there need to make sure that they've got multiple ways to get their weather warnings today, and also make sure that they have the ability to find some shelter, know where your safe place is, and know what actions to take if we do see those severe storms popping up this afternoon. We're going to watch that throughout today. Other than that, soaking rain coming to the central parts of the southern plains. That's really going to be the main story, is that possibility for severe weather across Mississippi. We'll keep an eye on that for today and the rest of the week. Right now, we're going to toss things back over to Isaiah for our next social roundabout.
Welcome into Social Roundabout, everyone. I'm Isaiah Buchanan. There is a new AI that's gaining a lot of popularity. If you haven't heard of it, it's called ChatGPT. And this AI you can ask it anything and it will give you an answer. It's really cool if you're actually one of the few that can get to use it, because it seems to always be at capacity. But take a look at this TikTok. This girl got some legal advice from ChatGPT. Take a look.
People are hating on this ChatGPT, this new AI that can literally almost do anything for you. And let me tell you why this is so powerful. Like, I literally might even cry. So I asked, my landlord won't give me my deposit back and I did nothing wrong. Can you write a letter to them demanding my deposit back, or I will take legal action? Before I read this, I want you to think of every scenario that this can help someone. A free legal work. This is what it gave me in 2 seconds. Dear landlord, I'm requesting the immediate return of my security deposit in the amount of deposit. I have fulfilled all of my obligations as a tenant, including maintaining the rental property in good condition and paying my rent on time. I have not caused any damage to the property beyond normal wear and tear, and I have provided you with a forwarding address where you can send the deposit. As you are aware, I vacated the property on date of move-out date in coordinates with the terms of the lease agreement. I have consistently paid my rent on time. If you do not return my deposit within blank days of receiving this letter, I will be forced to take legal action to recover the funds.
ChatGPT can do. Even Elon Musk has taken notice about how in-depth ChatGPT is. He posted this on Twitter. It says, ChatGPT is scary good. We are not far from dangerously strong AI. And Christian was actually one of the ones who was lucky enough to get in and use ChatGPT. He asked it to do a social media segment, and I'm not going to read this entire thing, but it just goes into a little bit of depth with trending topics that are going on social media. Number 1, Black History Month. Number 2, Super Bowl. Number 3, Valentine's Day. And number 4, NASA with the discovery of a new planet. So me and Christian, we might not have jobs too much longer if ChatGPT continues to get more and more advanced. That's all I have for this edition of the Social Roundabout. Right now, I'm going to toss things back over to Kaylee and Anthony. They're going to tell us what's coming up in the coming weeks here at FreightWaves.
I mean, maybe you could have just asked ChatGPT what's coming up in the coming weeks here at FreightWaves.
I actually did that, and they said the number one thing that you're going to have to tune into is our upcoming virtual event.
Global Supply Chain Week. ChatGPT said it, so it must be true. Head on over to live.freightwaves.com and get registered for that Global Supply Chain Week. We've got 3 days going on: maritime, CPG, retail, e-com, food and beverage, and automotive and heavy industry. So make sure that you head on over. It is free to register, and you get tossed up for some prizes as well. We'll have daily giveaways, but the real prize is the knowledge that you'll gain from being a part of the experience.
That's right, and you get to make a lot of new friends virtually just to kind of get warmed up for our upcoming in-person events, which are going to be happening this year. So this is a great way to just kind of start to build out that network and really start to put together your calendar for events in the upcoming year.
And you know what, maybe you don't want to sign up for a virtual event, but maybe you've got some shippers that are on your radar and you say, hey, these guys are awesome, we want to nominate them. Well, you're in luck. Our Shipper of Choice 2023 nominations have just opened up today here at FreightWaves. Head on over to FreightWaves.com to find that article and find the link to nominate your shipper of choice. Partnered with Triumph Pay for this award. It's always a good one that we love to deliver every single year. So go ahead and get your nominations in. They'll be open for a couple weeks, and then we'll start the process of narrowing it down. But remember, your favorite can't win unless you nominate them.
That's exactly right. And we're going to take a quick look at the last 24 hours in freight and a short break, but we'll be right back with more FreightWaves Now.
When guests come to an event like F3, we know what they want is a chance to show off their products, their swag, and make new partnerships that will last until our next FreightWaves event.
But the problem is there are so many industry events, it can be so hard to find the right one to invest your time and energy in. We at FreightWaves take your investment seriously.
Which is why we've brought together thousands of industry professionals in one city over 3 days to showcase all you have to offer.
Because your successful connections at an event like F3 move all of us forward.
Don't believe us?
Join us in June.
From the truckload quoting page within TMS, you can create a new shipment to instantly display your historical lane average alongside all of the market-leading rating intelligence tools. In just a few clicks, you can adjust the quote, add your margin, select your quote response template, and email an official quote right off to the customer from the same page. Request a demo today at tie-software.com to find out how Tie TMS can optimize your quoting process.
Welcome back to FreightWaves Now. It's time for your first check of your 10 a.m. headlines here this morning. RXO reported its first quarterly results since being spun off of parent company XPO last November. Came in with diluted earnings per share of 28 cents on a revenue of $1.1 billion. This is down $0.2 billion from the same period in 2021 when RXO was still part of the XPO umbrella. However, the earnings per share number beat analyst estimates by 5 cents per share. Margins came in at 19.6%, up 250 basis points year over year. That result led to a 3.3% rise in share price in after-hours trading yesterday. Engine maker Cummins is remaining on track with truck manufacturer projections for solid new truck demand across North America, at least for the first half of 2023. CEO and President Jennifer Brumleve said that healthy freight activity and strong backlogs give the company confidence in the market. Sales in Q4 were up 25% across North America, but the OEM projects North American heavy-duty truck production to fall between 260 and 280,000 units this year. It also projects a flat to an increase in medium-duty production from 125 to 140,000 units. LTL carrier Yellow Corp filed a revised change of operations notifications with the Teamsters Union earlier this week after a plan to consolidate operations at several terminals received pushback from the union. Yellow will increase turns for its drivers in order to improve quality of life for drivers, allowing them to make it home every night. Yellow said that the consolidation will also add consistency to driver schedules and allow for enhanced on-time service. Union workers, however, don't want to have to rebid for their jobs or take on additional dock operations, which they view as outside their description. The January Logistics Managers Index is out and shows a slowing in the deteriorating transportation market. Prices have contracted at a slower rate than they did in December, with the prices sub-index registering a reading of 42 for the month. This is the closest to break-even the index has been in 3 months and a 5.1% increase from December. However, the index is still close to 2-year lows. Transportation utilization was up 8.9% and capacity continued to expand, remaining near all-time highs. And LTL booking platform MyCarrier has launched a new dynamic insurance platform through a partnership with insurtech provider LoadSure. LoadSure digitally matches carriers with insurance on demand and is seamlessly integrated into the existing MyCarrier platform. Company leaders say that the partnership will help fix inconvenient procedures of filing and collecting insurance claims through an automated workflow, will make people get paid faster. You can find details of these stories and more by heading on over to FreightWaves.com or logging into your FreightWaves app. Give us a like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube and a follow on social media. And of course, head on over to tv.freightwaves.com for everything else that you might have missed. That's it for this look at headlines. We're going to toss things back over to the wall for our next carrier update.
Welcome into this carrier update. Donnie, going to start here looking at lead times. Obviously ticked up a little after they came back down from the holiday, but right now stable in that 2.7 range, which is longer than what they were prior to the holidays.
Maybe, maybe not. So we saw them kind of start drifting back down right through here, Tony.
Yep.
And I believe they would have continued on down. We'll call about 2.6 normal for drive-in. But we had this little uptick right here. And this was probably from our little winter storm. We saw Texas freeze up. We saw an ice and snow band go from Mexico all the way through the Northeast.
Yep.
And that cut off north and south and east and west routes. So we saw it kind of push back up. So it's on its way just a little bit back down. It's going to work its way back down. Our shippers under a lot of pressure? Maybe a little bit right now, and it's probably because they're trying to get caught up from these storms. They've got to reset deliveries, reset the pickups, also dealing with the same freight they should have already had picking up. So they got to get all this worked in. So they're under a little bit of pressure. Can you push these rates up right now? If you run across a shipper that's getting time sensitive, they're probably going to allow you to push those rates up a little bit. That's going to be a tough one to figure out who's what. So right now, the answer is they're working their way back down to 2.6, and they're probably not under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, the key here to remember is that we're talking about the difference of a couple hours, right? Not even like a day or two. We're talking
10% of a day, yeah. 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
If we saw it get to about a half a day, that could be a lot more meaningful.
Yep.
So yeah, like I say, maybe a little bit, but it's really because of that storm that just hit and it pushed it back just a little bit.
It's like what you've said. The difference in picking up if it's before noon or the afternoon, right? That's
12 o'clock, rates go up.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So that was always fun back in the day. All right, let's hop in here and see what else is going on here. So these are our drive-in rejection rates. I've broken it apart by market, not by market, by region. I absolutely love this map, Tony, because it helps me understand where I should probably keep my trucks at.
Yep.
And we keep going over and over these lanes a day. And if I really want to find a good, strong rate per mile for a lane per day,
I'll staying in the Midwest.
A Midwest, or I'll pick a Northeast.
Yep.
These have the higher rejection rates. But if we go by volume, we're going to go Midwest and Southeast. The only problem I have with the Northeast is there's a lot of congestion, a lot of traffic. There can be a lot more wrecks. It's more dangerous traffic because of how many people are in this area, how dense the population is. But it pays better.
Yep.
But you can't get a good 500-mile run in the Northeast. First of all, you run out of room.
Yes.
But second of all, it's hard to get 300 miles because of all the congestion. So I like these two as my two main markets.
Yeah, and to kind of go off that, it's one of those things, are you picking a chance to get a higher rate, or do you want to keep your truck loaded, right? That's kind of this give and take that you see, because if you want to push a higher rate, you can go up into the Northeast. If you want to make sure your truck's loaded, that's where the Southeast, even though rejection rates as a whole are lower, the odds of staying loaded, I mean, look at the height difference in the two regions. There's obviously more freight in the Southeast.
A few weeks ago, Tony, we went on lanes today, Atlanta to Denver, Kansas City, Chicago, back to Atlanta. Yep. And some of those rates were a lot lower versus just a shorter run. Well, at the end of the week, we actually made better money going out to Denver because that truck wasn't stopping, and we got about 1,000 more miles on that week.
Yep.
So you're right. It's, you can go lower rates and longer miles and do better on your gross, or choose just the higher rates, whatever is best for your niche.
Absolutely. Donnie, thank you so much for this update. We'll be sure to check in with you again a little later. Right now, we'll hand it back over to Kaylee and Anthony.
All right, guys, thank you so much for that update. We'll get one more before we're done here for the day. Right now, we're going to welcome in Blythe Brumleve to join us for a little conversation about sports, a little conversation about AI, and a lot of marketing. Blythe, thank you so much for being here. Our final folk to have survived Manifest last week. Give us quickly your conference rundown.
It was, I'm still recovering. I kind of just don't even, I'm in email hell right now, trying to come out of it, and hopefully we'll see it on the other side.
Well, it looks like, from what I saw, it was an amazing time. I think I saw a picture of you with, I think it was like a puppy.
Some puppies, yeah.
I only visited like 4 times. It's fine.
Talk about like the best marketing ever, right? Like Manifest has like the puppy room, the Super Bowl has the puppy bowl the day before the game. And this is the perfect segue into what we're talking about today is Super Bowl marketing, which it feels like it's the biggest game of the year, right? Does it really need marketing help anymore?
100%. It's one of those events that people actively tune in to watch the commercials. It's one of the few games of the year, or really the only game of the year, where you are actively watching just to see what brands are going to show off their commercials. I mean, brands spend millions of dollars. They spend an entire year planning these campaigns. And now we're sort of entering the realm of, okay, brands are deciding, am I going to advertise with the Super Bowl, or am I going to advertise on social media while everybody is watching their phones and watching the big game at the same time. And that's what we're kind of seeing with a couple of different collaborative efforts. FedEx is one of those companies where they are collaborating with musicians in order to have them create different songs over on TikTok. And then that way they will use that information and pick one person. We don't necessarily know yet which musician that they're going to pick, but then to show that one musician over on the actual Super Bowl ad. So they're doing some collaborative efforts with social media and also the big game.
And Blythe, one of the big things that I saw last year was some of the really popular talked about commercials and ads. And so do you think any of that's going to make its way into this year? Any kind of trends? I know one that kind of comes to mind was when there was just a QR code on the screen.
I was just going to talk about that.
Yeah, that was a huge one. Do you think anything like that will be seen this year?
Sure. So that was the Coinbase ad that everybody kind of just raved about because it was so simple. It was so just simple. And that's what I think a lot of folks are craving for, is that you can have these big production efforts, but sometimes being a little weird sticks out more than everything else that you're seeing. Now, with respect to that Super Bowl, we saw a lot of the fintech, a lot of the crypto monetization or companies spending money on those commercials during the Super Bowl. We're probably not going to see that this year because of the crypto crash. And so we're going to be moving a lot of marketers. A lot of these ads are already being released on Ad Week or not Ad Week, but Ad Network, I believe is the phrase. And so if you go to their channel, you can see all of these different commercials that have already been released. And a lot of Super Bowl watchers have already been polled. I think Marketing Brew did this study of about 1,000 adults, and they said that they actually don't like that the commercials are being released prior to the Super Bowl. They want to see them live, and they want it to be kind of like a spoiler-free event where you can watch these commercials live and experience them all together, which, I mean, sports in general is one of the last few things that you can watch together and experience live together, both in person and at home.
So, Blythe, I've got to wonder right now. We talk about what's trending and kind of meeting the consumer where they are when you're talking about advertising. On TikTok right now, there's a lot of this influencing trend, and people are calling it recession core, right? Like, not necessarily the spend your money with us, but the kind of like, okay, let's look at our consumption habits and let's maybe change the way that we're being marketed to. And I think a lot of that will play out with these big brands, maybe playing on the nostalgia and how it feels to maybe, okay, well, you know what? You're together with your family, a Pepsi, right? Instead of like the in-your-face, we sell you this Pepsi brand this year. Do you think that we could see that as a lot of trend, as maybe people taking, or companies taking a play on this de-influencing, more nostalgic, more time-friendly marketing strategy instead of this so in-your-face salesy approach?
100%, because you kind of see it in movies as well, where a lot of movies, they won't give that movie, they won't fund, a lot of these studios will not fund a new movie unless it has some kind of nostalgia feel to it. It has some kind of a backstory to, or it's been around for a while, because it costs so much money. It's around $200 million at minimum in order to promote a new movie. So a lot of these studios aren't even making that investment. And so on the flip side, if you're going to be making a high dollar investment, which is what a Super Bowl ad is, then you're going to play, or you want to play on the nostalgia feel of it. I just saw one of those, speaking of the previews of the commercials, Clueless, that all the original Alicia Silverstone and the original cast, they joined together to create a new commercial, and I about died because that was the movie for me when I was a kid. So that nostalgia factor is absolutely going to play a role. And plus, we're kind of, a couple years, quote unquote, removed from COVID. And so a lot of folks are just ready to laugh. They're ready to feel good again. And so that's what we're kind of expecting to see with a lot of the marketing going on this weekend.
I am completely clueless about that movie, so I'm guessing it's something else I have to add to the list. But we're looking at potentially the playoffs for AI. We're looking at Google kind of going up against Microsoft. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, yes. Google has entered the AI arms race with their new tool called Bard, which is it doesn't exactly flow off the tongue per se. But the danger with this is that it kind of brings to light that Google has actually been sitting on this technology for a while, but they were apprehensive. Sundar Pichai, who had a tweet thread the other day, was talking about how they have this technology, but they were just waiting because they were a little, apprehensive about what this might do to the the economy. I mean, they're on one side, they're Google, the company is Alphabet, the company is laying off, a bunch of white collar workers. And then they introduce a tool like this that is technically going to replace a lot of white collar workers. So where does that kind of fall in? So they've been resistant to releasing Bard to the general public, but now it's in testing. Microsoft and ChatGPT, their partnership has kind of forced their hand. So now we're kind of just all in on this AI arms race, and that the public is going to kind of be the guinea pig testing portion of it. But then on the flip side, you have all of these publishers that have been creating content online for years and years. And the big question now is which one of these big companies are going to actually partner with these publishers in order to scrape that data, in order to give an answer. There are a lot of, freight companies in general, their number one and number two strategies as far as marketing is concerned is advertising and SEO. How is that going to affect all of these publishers that have spent years trying to craft these blog posts and these YouTube videos, and AI is going to come in the mix and kind of display these answers without giving those publishers credit? That's where the next sort of like legal storm that we're going to find ourselves in is who is going to partner data-wise with ChatGPT and with Google's Bard in order to display these answers and display this information, because right now there are no citations. There's only one AI-powered search engine that is displaying citations, and that's a company called Neva. You pay about $6 a month, and they're doing a rev share with these different publishers like Quora and Wikipedia. But then on the flip side, Google and Microsoft are not, they haven't announced any kind of rev share for the partners for the data that they're scraping from these companies. So it kind of gets into like this legal murky waters. And then on the flip side, we're also, all getting kind of experimented on at the same time with these new AI tools. So we've entered into a new information age, and we're not exactly sure of which direction it's going to go. Some good, probably some bad along with it.
Definitely going to be an interesting route that we're going to go down here, and also kind of reminds me of those AI-generated images. And Blythe, this is something that we can just kind of continue to talk on for, I'm sure, at least an hour or so. But if people want to find more of your content, get more of your podcast, how can you do that?
They can check out everythingislogistics.com. That's where all my content, podcasts, socials, you can find it all right there.
Awesome, Blythe. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Right now, we're going to head back over to the wall because we have Kaylee Nix with our next weather update.
All right, Anthony, thank you for that. Time now to move back up into the Pacific Northwest, where we're watching some lingering precipitation in the lower elevations, but definitely some heavier snow lingering across the higher elevations in the mountains just to the east of Washington and Seattle. So let's check it out right now in Sonar Critical Events. We can tell that we've got the radar up, and there's still some heavy snow falling along the I-90 corridor through some of those mountain passes. And so because of that, still winter weather advisories in place. Of course, chain restrictions still up as well. But we do have some potential road closures in place for some of those mountain passes to the east side of Seattle, moving through the mountains there. That I-90 corridor is dealing with some issues today. Further south down into the Portland area, the mountains there, I-84. Also dealing with some winter weather issues as we've got some snow and some mixed precipitation falling there. Overall amounts are going to be pretty light, but with what fell yesterday and what's continuing to fall today, we could expect total accumulations anywhere between about 3 to 8 inches on top of what already exists in some of those higher mountain passes. Further out towards the east, across the northern parts of Montana and Idaho, we've also got winter weather advisories in place as that heavy snow kind of sets up shop over the mountains and slowly drifts down to the south-southeast. We're going to have to watch that through I-15 moving through Butte, and then I-90 moving through Bozeman, and then down into the areas into southeastern Idaho, and again back into the northern parts of Utah. Pocatello down through I-15, I-86 and 84. We've got winter weather advisories in place there, moving through those southeastern Idaho mountains. Again, basically drivers everywhere out there, they know what they're doing. If they're running out west in the winter, they need to be careful, need to make sure that you have those chains. Stay updated on when your chain restrictions are in place and where those road closures might be. We'll talk about weather one more time before we are done here for the day. Right now, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more FreightWaves Now in just a few minutes.
The 2023 Freight Tech 25 list is filled with meaningful innovators from across the industry who are helping shape what the future of supply chain will look like. Check out the full list of these companies and all the latest Freight Tech news at FreightWaves.com.
From the truckload quoting page within TieTMS, you can create a new shipment to instantly display your historical lane average alongside all of the market-leading rating intelligence tools. In just a few clicks, you can adjust the quote, add your margin, select your quote response template, and email an official quote right off to the customer from the same page. Request a demo today at tie-software.com to find out how TieTMS can optimize your quoting process.
Welcome to Drilling Deep. I'm your host, John Kingston. Drilling Deep is the place where we talk about oil and we talk about diesel, and you have to drill to get oil and you have to get oil to make diesel, so that's why we call it Drilling Deep. Drilling Deep drops every Friday on FreightWaves TV and all available podcast platforms.
All right, everybody, welcome back to FreightWaves Now. It's Wednesday, which means that it is time to put somebody on the hot seat, asking the question, is a hot dog actually a sandwich or not? Just kidding, that's her own question. But here is FreightWaves' Mary O'Connell on the hot seat today.
Welcome once again into the hot seat, where we prepare one unsuspecting individual for 10 questions that they have to answer. And today our special guest is 3PL expert, FreightWaves connoisseur, Mary O'Connell. Mary, how you doing?
I'm good, Bill. How are you?
I'm warm, as you can tell. Are you ready for 10 questions?
I am. I'm pretty excited. I feel like they can't be that bad, but I guess we'll find out.
We'll find out.
I feel like my seat's gotten a little warmer, so let's see what happens.
Okay, all right. First question is almost always the same. What do you think right now is the biggest problem in freight?
Honestly, probably driver parking. I'm going to go with driver parking because that affects everybody, and it kind of makes life harder for drivers that don't need their life any more difficult than it is.
Gotcha. All right. You have, number two, you have spent some time as a broker. Yes. Mm-hmm. All right. Here's your question. What's the worst nightmare as a broker that you've seen that happened to somebody else?
I think it would be probably when someone got their load taken hostage, and the carrier that took it hostage was like, if you don't stop calling me about this load, I will send it on a boat, because it was up in the Seattle area. They're like, I'll send it on a boat to across the ocean. And I was like, what is happening? I know they had to end up getting the police involved and get an escort in there. It was literally the definition of I'm sorry, can you repeat what you just said, because this is not real. So yeah, that's when I was like, maybe I don't want to ever pick up the phone again.
Oh, wow. That's bad. All right. So number three, if you could pick one person in the freight industry, living or dead, to pick their brain, who would you want to have dinner with?
I'd have to go with the head of transportation and logistics for Walmart, because they do Walmart's just what everybody strives to be, they have it, they're on it, they're crushing it. And I mean, they've come up with some really creative solutions, and they've been able to fix a lot of problems with money, which is great, but also through creativity. So I think I would like to sit down and have a chit chat with them.
All right, that's a great answer there. Number 4, going back to your broker roots, what's the best advice that you would have for a broker in lean times like we have now?
Don't be mean to your carriers. They are the backbone that you have. So for me, I've always been a carrier relations person. I don't care if I have to sit on the phone and listen to one of my carriers talk, have a conversation with his wife, or look up a Nintendo Switch for his son. I will go that extra mile because it might only take me 5 minutes, but that's something that they're going to remember, and that's something that when I'm in a pinch and I need something moved, they're gonna be able to help me out. So definitely those core carriers, just see what you can do for them, and don't be mean to your carriers, and stop throwing your carriers under the bus for every time something goes wrong.
That's interesting to throw a carrier under the bus. But anyway, number 5. We know that you are a person that is out and about and on the go. What is your gas station food drink combo of choice?
So I actually have never really had gas station food. It's very weird. I have a thing about the rollers, and I just feel like it's always dirty. But there is a QT by my house, so people in the Midwest might probably know what that is. It's Quick Trip. They have a whole kitchen inside of there now, so I've had their soft pretzels and they're pretty good. But other than that, I'm a Sprite girly. I'm a fountain Sprite girly all day long.
All right, then. Number 6, if you could change one law in the freight industry, what would it be?
Remove non-competes.
All right. That's got a lot of
non-competes.
That's got a lot of push behind it right now, and a lot of resistance there as well. Number 7, what do you think is, in your experience, and that is the entire experience, what do you think is the biggest mistake being continuously made in the freight industry?
Honestly, just probably trying to pass the buck off to somebody else. And whether it's when a problem happens, you're like, oh, well, I don't really handle that, so I'm going to push you off to somebody else. Or, oh, I don't really know, go talk to, if you have a carrier that calls at the guard jack and says, guard jack won't let me in. Okay, well, just here's a shipper, call them, do whatever. It literally takes 5 minutes for you to just go and try and trace down that problem. And then you can have it solved. Just I know it's hard and annoying and cumbersome to deal with problems as they come up, but just handle it, because then you have to send someone else to somebody else and they have to restart the story all over again. And then each time you go, everyone's getting more and more frustrated and annoyed. So just handle the problems as they come. Stop trying to pass the buck off.
All right. Number 8, what is the best book that you have ever read that has helped you in the freight industry? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a freight-centric book.
If you look closely, you might be able to see it. The CFR 49 that sits down there. Okay. That's pretty helpful to know about your hazardous chemicals when you're shipping chemicals. So obviously that would probably be the most helpful book that I've read. But I haven't sat down and read it cover to cover because honestly, who has time for that?
Okay, that certainly qualifies. Number 9, great question here for you. If you would happen to get locked in a warehouse for one night, it could be any warehouse for any company, what would it be and where would we find you in the morning?
It would be a Sam's Club or a Costco warehouse because even though it technically is a store, it is still technically a warehouse. And you would find me up on the pallet with lights reenacting. Basically, you would find me reenacting the movie Employee of the Month because I unironically do love that movie. I know it's Dane Cook and Jessica Simpson at their finest, classic early 2000s. You would find me reenacting that movie, that's where you would find me. And I love it. And that's where you would find me.
No qualms here. Last question, it's always the same. Fill in the blank. Freight is blank.
Freight is weird.
Okay.
It's would you like some elaboration?
Just a little bit.
So freight is weird because not every freight situation is the same. You could literally pick up the phone and be dealing with tires and put the phone down, and the next conversation could be about produce. There's so many times where I've been sitting at my desk talking to carriers, talking to shippers, talking to anybody, and I'm just, the amount of things I'm switching between, you're just like, man, this is a really weird job that I have, where someone just called me and is like, hey, can you move a hunk of frozen chicken? Sure, no problem. Hey, can you move $1 million research tractor? Sure, no problem. Have a nice day. So you're just like, what is my job? What is my job? I'm just moving weird things. So yeah, freight's just weird. It's fun, but it's weird.
Well, your job now is that you're off the hot seat.
It really wasn't that, I don't feel like my seat's any hotter than it was before, so it really wasn't that bad.
Hey everybody, this is Thomas Watson, enterprise trucking carrier expert here at FreightWaves, telling you about my show, Loaded and Rolling. Now, it involves trucking topics for large carriers and even small ones that wish to be large. Anything that impacts trucking, you can get it there. You can catch us every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern on tv.freightwaves.com. We do it live.
From the truckload quoting page within TieTMS, you can create a new shipment to instantly display your historical lane average alongside all of the market-leading rating intelligence tools. In just a few clicks, you can adjust the quote, add your margin, select your quote response template, and email an official quote right off to the customer from the same page. Request a demo today at tie-software.com to find out how TieTMS can optimize your quoting process.
Like F3, we know what they want is a chance to show off their products, their swag, and make new partnerships that will last until our next FreightWaves event.
But the problem is there are so many industry events, it can be so hard to find the right one to invest your time and energy in. We at FreightWaves take your investment seriously.
Which is why we've brought together thousands of industry professionals in one city over 3 days to showcase all you have to offer.
Because your successful connections at an event like F3 move all of us forward.
Don't believe us?
Join us in June.
It's a good day coming.
And welcome back to FreightWaves Now for our final check of weather on your Wednesday morning. We're watching our storm set up across the southern plains today, bringing a chance of severe weather to the deep south, including all the way from Memphis down the I-55 corridor in western Mississippi and into the northern parts of Louisiana. But ahead of that, we're going to be watching a little bit of a nicer day, and behind it, a nicer end to your week coming for the eastern half of the country. Let's check it out in Sonar Critical Events. This storm system today is going to be kind of a quick hitter, especially for the southeast, moving fairly rapidly up to the northeast. Because of that speed is why we have that severe weather threat in place. The cold front that's trailing behind it across central and western Texas right now is really driving a lot of that forcing to get those severe weather chances up. And because of that, it'll move pretty quickly with the moisture influx off of the Gulf of Mexico. So for today, across Mississippi down from Jackson into the northern parts of Louisiana, We can be expecting a threat for severe weather, and with that does come with some strong thunderstorms, possible tornadoes, and strong winds. In front of the storm, we've got wind advisories in place and high wind watches in place across the northern parts of Indiana into Kentucky, as well as wind advisories here in southeastern Tennessee and central Tennessee as well. But that storm will move pretty quickly up to the northeast. Behind the cold front, temperatures will drop down into their seasonal levels, temperatures settling in the 40s or so for us here across the southeast, but skies will clear and it'll be fairly sunny to end out the week. By the time that the weekend hits us, we will see cold temperatures moving back in again for a chillier temperature, but again, a sunny weekend here across the southeast. Pretty nice after we've had several weeks of rainfall here across the southeast. Quickly moving in again, as I mentioned, some snowfall could be expected across the central parts of the plains and up towards the Great Lakes, but overall, quick hitting, not super impactful from the storm today besides that severe weather threat. We'll continue to keep a watch on the weather as we move throughout the rest of your week here on FreightWaves Now. Right now, I'm going to toss it back over to Isaiah for our final social roundabout.
Welcome into Social Roundabout, everyone. I'm Isaiah Buchanan, and I'm really looking forward to that sunny weekend. I'm getting really tired of the rain here in Freight Alley. But to start things off with this hit, there is a new scoring leader in the NBA. LeBron James passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar last night as the Lakers lost in their game 133-132. I believe it was the Oklahoma City Thunder. And you can see in this video right here, LeBron guarded, takes his time, backs his man down, turns around for the fadeaway, boom, and he knows it right there. The crowd goes crazy. He's got his hands up. LeBron, with that shot, became the NBA scoring leader. With that, it gave him 38,388 points to pass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who held the record for 39 years. He had 38,387 points. James did end this game with 38,109. So he is now 3 points ahead. And I really am anxious to see where he ends up all time because he's still got several years left of playing ball. I mean, he's in his 20th season and his numbers are better than ever. So James could be, potentially scoring 45, 46,000 points. And that's a record that will stand the test of time. Now, I want to show you why mine and Christian's social media hit might be getting taken over by AI. ChatGPT is a new AI that's really gaining a lot of popularity. Christian asked it the question to do a news segment on social media, and it came up with 4 different topics right now. The first one being Black History Month, makes sense. February is Black History Month. Super Bowl. Super Bowl is coming up this weekend between Philadelphia and Kansas City. 3rd, Valentine's Day. Guys, make sure you're getting your gifts for your wives. And 4th, NASA. So yes, ChatGPT seems to be moving full speed ahead right now with being able to answer any questions that you have for it. But you do have to be one of the lucky ones to get in. I've tried it multiple times, and every time I go to the site, it says that it's down. So good luck if you do try. That's all I have for this edition of the Social Roundabout. I'm going to toss things over to Bill Priestley for our roundtable.
And welcome into the roundtable. Bill Priestley here with you. And an interesting article came out about a month ago concerning warehouse rates and rents, and that they may be skyrocketing here over the course of the 2023 year. Joining us to talk about it is Joe Oliaro, the VP of Sales and Chief Real Estate Officer for Wagner Logistics, who also is coming out of Kansas City, Missouri. No doubt excited about what's happening this Sunday as well. I would have to assume anyway. Joe, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So ProLogic just came out with in an article that Todd Maiden wrote, which you can see here, basically said that rents were going to go up 10% in the warehouse area nationwide, 9% globally, and also adding 500 basis points to that in areas close to U.S. coasts. First question, are you surprised? Second question, is the number right?
Well, it's funny. I was just about to say I'm not surprised. Rents have been going up over the last 5 to 10 years on a regular basis, and I guess in my opinion, we're coming to the end of a development cycle. We're coming to a point where the cost of capital due to interest rates is so much higher, and construction costs and materials are so much higher that these developers really can't justify it any longer. So they're cutting their pipeline in half of development activity, which in of itself, there's still an incredible amount of demand for space. especially in the top 50 markets on the West Coast, Texas. You've got a lot of these markets that really want that really want to bring in more development, but it's these developers are saying no, not today.
Gotcha. 10% nationwide and 9% globally. You think the numbers are right?
I think it's pretty close. Yeah, I think it. From our perspective at Wagner, we try to go out and find flexible space options, and there's always space out there. But the nice new tilt-up warehouses, the sexy buildings that you see from the interstate, the rents on those aren't going down anytime soon. And the proposals that we get from landlords, they continue to go up and up.
10% is a pretty dramatic jump no matter what industry you're in there. How much does this have to do with the fact that over the course of the past couple of years that a lot of retailers, shippers have been dealing with a just-in-time versus just-in-case methodology, and now that, of course, with things going sparse, we went to a just-in-case mentality. Is that figuring into this at all?
Yeah, I think that the retailers got caught up during COVID, and they all wanted overflow inventory. They had been working on just-in-time inventory, and then they said, "Oh shoot, we've got all this excess demand. Our demand just went up by 30% because everybody's working from home now. Everybody's ordering things online. So we need to ramp up our overflow. We need to ramp up the manufacturing. We need to increase our distribution footprint, or even consider a regional supply chain model where we need to open up more space so that we can get more product to the customers more quickly." So in that respect, it's been a game changer on the warehouse side. On the front end of that, you've seen changes with some of the big box groups where they're doing fulfillment out of the or omni-channel out of the big box retail center like Walmart or Target, and then you've seen other even like mall developers and retail property owners beginning to offer fulfillment options right there on site. They'll bring in a third-party fulfillment provider that will do the fulfillment for the smaller retailers that want to occupy space in that development.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just kind of going to delve into that area there when we're talking about retailers, especially the retailers that got caught with so much more inventory that they have to get rid of. I was recently at a home improvement store here in the area, and I believe they were selling gas grills that were perhaps still on the front porch of that store last summer. With retailers, any changes, you mentioned a couple there, any changes in strategy in terms of what they've got to do if they've got overhead, if they've got inventory they have to get rid of?
It's a closeout sale. It's, hey, let's take up less space in our back room. Let's take up a less amount of backroom space to hold inventory, and let's showcase our highest moving products, and have a fire sale for those that aren't moving. And I think that's what we've seen so far on the retail side.
So with that, let's go to like more or less the warehouse strategy of this as well, because obviously as prices go up, people are still looking for the cheaper or possibly even the cheapest option. If you're advising a warehouse, how do you gauge how much prices need to go up, and how much are you watching the entire market overall?
Well, from a third-party logistics perspective, it's all about cost. Like we are the cost mover on that end. So it's helping the customer understand what the costs are from our end, and then it's really up to them to figure out whether or not they can pass some of those costs on to the consumer. And then, we've got to be flexible and agile enough to help them keep those costs down, whether that's offering flexible space options, shared labor across a multi-customer warehouse, and shared equipment. So I think that there's a lot of different options there. It just depends on how eager that retailer or that shipper is willing to collaborate with a partner to help them keep the costs down.
Right. So with this 10% jump, or at least forecasted, 10% jump, you're looking at a situation where it looks like this market's become just a little bit more volatile, in this case, at least with a jump like that. How do you forecast as far as what you're seeing out of warehousing, how they're going to be reacting to changes coming down the line? Do you expect to see warehousing become a little more volatile as fuel, as trucking, as maritime shipping, as all these costs have started to not necessarily be consistent, but become a little bit more unpredictable?
Yeah, I think a lot of 3PLs, speaking for the industry here, sure. I think a lot of 3PLs have learned over the last decade that you can't just own a warehouse or lease a warehouse and have a fixed rate, and then also your costs that are passed on to your customer, you need to price escalation into those costs. So you need to say, we're forecasting labor to escalate by, let me back up. So I think a lot of people were estimating labor to be 3 to 5% year over year escalating, and it's been much more than that. It's been more like 8 or 10% year over year. So a lot of logistics companies have put themselves in a bad position because they haven't been able to react or forecast that amount. And so when you come back up to a renewal or something like that with a customer, you've got this huge gap that you have to cover in order to be profitable. And sometimes the customer doesn't always understand that.
Yeah. As a 3PL, as you advise and take care of shippers in terms of what they're needing in terms of moving their goods from place to place and using warehousing, as you see these costs go, is it still going to be business as usual, or do you think that as you see the freight come in and needs to be moved, are you advising them in different ways and trying to move in maybe more to a just-in-time, or try and keep those warehouse costs down because of the course that they're expanding as well?
Yeah, I think the focus is on continuous improvement initiatives. The focus is on, labor, transportation, and occupancy costs, which are the three main costs across the supply chain. So anything we can do to reduce the footprint that our customer occupies while maintaining their volumes, that leads into an automation conversation. But and then also with escalating labor, automation helps with that as well. So we're having more and more conversations around automation and automation roadmaps for customers that want a sustainable long-term solution to keep costs from going on the roller coaster and keep them on a steady incline that they can forecast and predict around.
I was actually going to ask that in terms of automation. Obviously, that's a major moving force in warehousing at this particular point. We got about a minute left here. Is that contributing as well to this cost increase because of the fact that warehouse owners have to make these purchases that are not small and not cheap?
Yeah, larger companies are really starting to make an investment into automation, and it's not all at once. It's bits and pieces here and there. And that's because the automation industry and automation software is so young. Mm-hmm. There's so much room for improvement, cost reduction across, automation efficiencies and things that are coming down the pipe that companies have to be ready for. So I think in answer to your question, I guess what we're trying to do is put together automation roadmaps and help customers understand kind of where they can reduce costs by taking advantage of automation to address longer moves throughout the warehouse, repetitive moves, things that are easy to eliminate some bodies for.
Gotcha there. Real quick, as we got to go, give me the final score of the Super Bowl.
Oh, man. 35-27 Chiefs.
I knew it had to be KC. Joe, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Joe Oliaro, VP of Sales and Chief Real Estate Officer for Wagner Logistics. We'll take a short break, and we break right after this.
2023 Freight Tech 25 list is filled with meaningful innovators from across the industry who are helping shape what the future of supply chain will look like. Check out the full list of these companies and all the latest Freight Tech news at FreightWaves.com.
From the truckload quoting page within TieTMS, you can create a new shipment to instantly display your historical lane average alongside all of the market-leading rating intelligence tools. In just a few clicks, you can adjust the quote, add your margin, select your quote response template, and email an official quote right off to the customer from the same page. Request a demo today at tie-software.com to find out how TieTMS can optimize your quoting process.
Welcome back. It's time for a final check of your headlines this morning before we get out of here. The January Logistics Managers Index is out and shows a slowing in the deteriorating transportation market. Prices have contracted at a slower rate than they did in December, with the prices sub-index registering a reading of 42 for the month. This is the closest to break even the index has been in 3 months, a 5.1% increase from December. However, the index is still close to 2-year lows. Transportation utilization was up 8.9 points, and capacity continues to expand, remaining near all-time highs. LTL booking platform MyCarrier has launched a new dynamic insurance platform through a partnership with insurtech provider LoadSure. LoadSure digitally matches carriers with insurance on demand and is seamlessly integrated into the existing MyCarrier platform. Company leaders say that the partnership will fix the inconvenient procedures of filing and collecting insurance claims through an automated workflow. And Ryder System has a new face with professional golfer Sam Ryder after he sunk a hole-in-one in shot on golf's loudest hole, the par 3 at DPC Scottsdale. This year's Waste Management Phoenix Open kicks off this weekend with Ryder leading the latest marketing campaign for a logistics company. Sam Ryder has not yet won on the PGA Tour, but this does mark a first for him, Ryder System's first foray into marketing for professional golf. You can find details of these stories and more on FreightWaves.com and our FreightWaves app. If you're watching us live on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe to stay updated. And of course, head on over to tv.freightwaves.com for anything else you might have missed during the week. Right now, we're going to toss it back over to Tony and Donnie for our final carrier update of the morning.
Welcome into this final carrier update. Donnie, our lanes of the day, going to start here. Looking at Denver, it's an interesting market.
Well, we got a little bit behind that. I wasn't able to show you my VOTRI change map, but on the change map, we saw Denver pop up. It was one of the very few markets that was actually in blue. The change map, if you look at it right now, go and pull your 3D maps and pull up VOTRI. You'll see it's a lot of rural markets that are turning blue, and a lot of the major markets are red or neutral. So I went in and said, hey, Denver's on there. Let's pull up Denver. I hadn't looked at it in a while, and I'd actually had a chart on Denver. But leaving Denver, come back to Kansas City, you can go Denver to Chicago, but you're going to pay the low rate the entire full, all the miles. My suggestion is always try to go Denver to maybe like a Kansas City, and then you can just about double your rate coming out of Kansas City. But it's picked up a little bit. We're back up to $1.32. So you're going to run the first 600 miles at $1.32. This is a tough one to swallow, but hopefully you got paid going into Denver. And then you can hopefully get back to 600 miles to Kansas City, and then take a 500-mile trip out of Kansas City at around 240 or better, getting back into the Midwest. So I like this. You can still make money on that Denver run. as I talked about before, is the reason you can is normally is because you're not stopping every day in that truck and taking 2 hours to unload at minimum, an hour to get to your next delivery, then 2 hours to reload, or 3 hours, knocking 5 or 6 hours out of each day.
Yeah.
So you can knock down a lot of miles at a lower rate and still be profitable, or your average revenue per day can be a little bit higher. So I like this run. It's a good one. But let's kind of take a turn and pivot. Let's go to our next chart and say Denver to Dallas. A little bit different here. It pays a little bit better here. You're returning the Dallas at $1.44. Again, rates are coming up out of Denver. We're seeing it here in the market dashboard, and it's an 800-mile run. The problem I have with this is if you're in Dallas, you need to be running contracted freight out of the Dallas market because Dallas is $2 a mile or less getting out of Dallas. You can't go back and forth on this lane and make any money. So hopefully you're accepting contracted freight maybe in the Denver, then coming back at $1.44.
Yeah.
And then you might be all right, but it's a long trip, 800 miles. Let's go to the West Coast. Denver out to LAX. Again, $1.60 for just over 1,000 miles. It pays a little bit better. Rates have gone up here. It was at $1.50 a few weeks ago. So you're doing a little bit better, but the reason you're doing better on this lane is because rates have come down coming out of LAX. Spot rates have come down coming out of LAX. So that's why this rate's gone up. It's kind of balancing back out.
Yeah, and I mean, you're at the highest point you've been at in, the last 6 months? I mean, there was one spike on one day at 163, but I mean, you're still looking $1.60 compared to where it normally sits under that $1.50 range. It's maybe not so bad if you can get contracted freight out of LA, because that's where you're going to have to take it, because like you said, the rates have come down. Spot rates in particular have come down, and you're still paying really high fuel prices on the West Coast.
Yes, and for quite a ways till you probably get to New Mexico and before you cut up. All right, let's change directions here and go from Baltimore to Buffalo. Rates have been trickling down. They kind of bounced back just a little bit, but still it's a pretty decent rate. 343, so Northeast pays the best. Flip this around, coming back, Buffalo come back to Baltimore, 368. So you can get 350 a mile on this average. A pretty good lane for drive in, but it's the Northeast and it's only a 360-mile run.
Thank you, Donnie, for the updates today. We'll be sure to check in with you again tomorrow. Right now, we'll hand it back over to Kaylee and Anthony.
All right, guys, thanks for that. We are done here for your Wednesday and halfway through your week on FreightWaves TV. But plenty more to catch up on and plenty more to find if you missed anything for the first few days of the week.
That's right, and it's Wednesday, so that means in just about an hour we're going to have, of course, Tim Dooner and What the Truck coming up, and that's always entertaining. And we'll also have an episode of Fuller Speed Ahead.
We heard from Greg Sharkey this morning, which means that Point of Sale is coming up this afternoon right here at 2 o'clock. With Sonar, Luke Falaska and Tony Mulvey will be back this afternoon at 3, and Truck Tech with Alan Adler drops at 4 o'clock. So a full day of FreightWaves TV content. If you get bored at any point in time today, which I know you won't, head on over to live.freightwaves.com and get registered for our new upcoming Global Supply Chain Week event.
And the 24-hour countdown starts soon for the next episode of Freightonomics, but it's not going to have me. It's going to have the one and only Tony Mulvey and Zach Strickland on this episode. Don't want to miss it.
Tony getting a lot of airtime this week. We're excited for him. But if you want to go ahead and register for Global Supply Chain Week, head on over to live.freightwaves.com. You'll have the opportunity to win some awesome door prizes every single day. And also, Anthony, our nominations for Shipper of Choice opened up this morning. So go ahead on over to regularfreightwaves.com and get in your nominations for that. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning starting live at 9.